who we were, and who we're destined to become are all reflections of the stories we tell, of gods and devils from tales of the heart to those of fear and foreboding. Stories shape us in the world we live in. Myths, folk tales, and even religious parables all define our cultures and beliefs. In each episode of Faith and Fear, we will dip our toes into the comparative narratives spanning the globe, considering the concepts and archetypes common to us all. Shalom and Prazir. Hello and peace. It's a pleasure. Thanks for following me down the rabbit hole once again on my journey to better understand the stories and beliefs that shape us. As always, you've been missed. Don't think of it as dying, said Death. Just think of it as leaving early to avoid the rush. Terry Pratchett, Good Omens. The Nice and Accurate Prophecies of Agnes Nutterwitch. Here we are, back again. I hope you and yours are well, and that you are not only surviving, but living your best life. Because even if you live to see 100 years, that's still pretty short. I really do want each and every one of you to be happy. There's far too much hate, hurt, and pain in the world, but I believe we can change it. We just have to start with ourselves and our own circle. You are listening to me now. That means I consider you a part of mine. This week's episode could be considered a bit dark, as we will be discussing themes related to death and passing on from this world. Death is a part of life, giving it meaning, and the things we do while we're here wait. But for those who believe it is not the end, it is only one part of the journey. The journey, not the destination, is and always will be the most important. That said, sometimes we need a bit of help to overcome whatever obstacles come our way, whatever trials befall us, and to guide us wherever it is we are going. That includes traversing from one life, one world to the next. For that, we need a psychopomp. The Merriam-Webster's dictionary concisely defines a psychopomp as a conductor of the souls to the afterworld. Such a simple definition for such a complex role. In one form or another, psychopomps exist in almost every religion across the globe. It is their responsibility to guide the souls of the recently deceased from this world to the next. They are often envoys of a higher power, serving as spiritual couriers. However, it is not their place to judge their fare, but to simply escort them to the next destination. Two of the most well-known psychopomps in Western culture are angels and the figure of the Grim Reaper. While a number of other entities have been believed to fulfill this role, including various creatures, spirits, and even a number of deities, several animals such as but not limited to dogs, deer, owls, vultures, sparrows, as well as ravens and crows have also carried out these duties. Psychopomps are usually highly skilled at guiding their charge with compassion and non-judgment. They have the ability to cross the veil between the worlds, traveling through the lands of the living and the lands of the dead at their leisure. Their personalities can vary, some being solemn and somber, while others behave as self-serving tricksters at best. Many psychopomps have the ability to change their appearance, to fit in with their surroundings, or even to fit the needs of their charge. By their very nature, psychopomps are almost always ageless and magical. Some can grant healing, others even attempt to redirect individuals to a more meaningful path in life when they've strayed. Each Easily the most common understanding of a psychopomp today revolves around spirits or spiritual entities of some kind. Typically associated with the Judeo-Islamic Christian belief systems, angels are often revered as beings of pure light and grace. They are known to serve as protectors, guardians, and even warriors, as well as those who guide the souls of the recently deceased. One of the chief angels among the Judeo-Christian and Muslim angelic hierarchy, Azrael, sometimes called Azrael, is known as the Angel of Death. It is his duty to retrieve souls of the deceased from their body, sometimes described as being of unfathomable size with a body covered in numerous eyes, tongues, and bearing over 4,000 wings. He straddles the bridge between life and death, 1 foot in the 4th or 7th heaven, 1 foot in hell. Azrael is said to be one of the few angels willing to travel to Earth before the creation of Adam, facing the armies of jinn that he might retrieve the necessary components for God to mold man. Azrael is also said to watch over the Lot tree of the end, the sacred tree that exists in paradise. Beneath God's throne, a new leaf sprouting on its branches every time a person is born. When the person dies, the leaf falls, alerting Azrael that it is time to retrieve their soul and escort them to judgment. The Archangel Michael is one of the most well-known warrior angels in the Judeo-Christian angelic hierarchy, and some believe it is his face to be seen when one breathes their last breath. Some believe that Michael primarily appears to those who have yet to give themselves to God, giving them one final chance at salvation just before their moment of death. It is said that Michael works in tandem with a person's guardian angels, escorting the souls of the devout to paradise when they die. Among the Labrador Inuit people of northeastern Canada, there is a belief that the Aurora Borealis, or Northern Lights, are actually the souls of loved ones, long deceased ancestors, and spirit guides attempting to communicate and even play. They are also believed to show the way for the newly departed. Of course, in the category of spirits, I have to include ancestors. Among the well-held beliefs in many parts of the world is that one of our ancestors, usually a close family member that preceded us in death, will be there to greet us and guide us into the afterlife when we die. This is likely one of the most comforting psychopomps among the list. Those who have had a near-death experience often describe seeing light beings made of a brilliant, bright light giving off loving energy who appear to guide or give aid. I'm not going to go too deeply into him, but the figure of the Grim Reaper, Death himself, is, as I said, among the most well-known psychopomps in Western society, and most of you have likely seen an incarnation of the character at some point in pop culture. It varies among stories and believers whether or not the Reaper is capable of causing a person's death, or if he simply arrives when the time is near to escort the soul after it's left the person's body, severing the final ties between the two. The Shinigami are death spirits who are said by some to harm or possess the living, especially those who are particularly wicked. Though their name translates to death god, as with all things in animalistic belief systems, everything has a governing spirit, so Shinigami are essentially the spirits who govern death. It is their duty to invite humans to death, i.e. reaping their souls, much like the Western and European Grim Reaper. However, seeing a Shinigami while still alive almost always heralds unnatural or violent death. They are described as being human in appearance, but with a gray, corpse-like complexion and sharp features. Japanese legends say that these death spirits work in pairs, appearing when it is a person's time to die, inviting them to cross the veil that exists between life and death to join them in the hereafter. Next, we have animal psychopomps. Among them, bees are one of many sacred animals. Their depiction frequently found on age-old monuments and are said to possess the ability to travel between this world and the next. Dogs are believed by many to be not only lifelong companions, but companions in the afterlife as well. Mesoamerican folklore tells one of many narratives where dogs are said to escort the dearly departed, in these stories across bodies of water into the hereafter. Dogs are a perfect example of an eternal partner and guide. Dolphins were considered psychopomps among Australian and Greco-Roman beliefs, while among the Celts, the fox was considered a wise and highly revered guide into the spirit world. As with many other cultures, the fox is also known to be a trickster and shapeshifter, par for the course with a psychopomp, capable of taking on any form necessary. Some Teutonic and Celtic folklore has horses offering safe passage into the afterlife. They are also said to transport the souls of virtuous Muslims to the heavenly kingdom. One of my favorite archetypes for gods and spiritual beings is the liminal deity. Liminal deities are gods who rule over thresholds, the in-between places. Known as the Father, the Inuit god Angunta governs the dead, dragging the souls of the deceased down into the icy underworld of Adlavun. They must remain there receiving appropriate punishment for a length of time determined by the number of sins committed in life, only after which will their soul be allowed to traverse to the Inuit version of heaven, Quidlavun, the land of the moon. Anyone who knows anything about Egyptian mythology is at least aware of the jackal-headed god Anubis. It was Anubis who presided over the embalming and mummification process. It was also his role to escort the dead to receive Osiris's judgment. The journey with Anubis through the underworld was itself a part of the purification process. Before entering the hall of Ma'at and approaching the scales of judgment, where the deceased's heart would be weighed on a scale against a single feather. If the heart weighs less than the feather, the person is allowed to enter the afterlife. Not specifically a deity, those familiar with Greek mythology have likely heard the stories containing encounters with Charon, whose actual role was not so much guiding souls of the dead as it was simply ferrying them across the river Styx. It was Hermes who typically escorted the souls to judgment, and after arriving, Charon would demand a toll of a single coin, usually placed under the tongue of the person at their time of passing. Those who failed to pay Charon's price would be damned to drift hopelessly along the shores of the river for all of eternity. In Zoroastrianism, Dana is the embodiment of a person's lifelong deeds that is said to manifest as either an alluring young woman or a grotesque old crone. When a person dies, their actions are weighed to determine whether they are permitted to cross the Shinnevat bridge safely to the next world. One of the Vanir, Freya, the Norse goddess of love, beauty, sex, war, and fertility, also presided over the afterlife, a realm known as Folkvog, also called the Field of Armies. Freya is said to choose half of those who die in an honorable death, bringing them into Folkvog, sending the remaining half to Valhalla. In Welsh mythology, Gwyn ap Nudd is the king of the fair folk, or fairies, and ruler of the otherworld. Some would invoke his name before entering woodlands, asking for his permission to enter. Stories describe him being elven with a war-torn appearance and having a blackened face. He is said to lead a pack of fairy dogs with which he harvests human souls during his wild hunt, a grand event where a host of magical creatures gather together to hunt a forest spirit, though the nature and participants in the wild hunt sometimes vary. Hermes, known as the messenger to the Greek gods and guide of the recently deceased to the realm of Hades, is a perfect, well-known example of what most people understand a psychopomp to be. A true liminal deity, Hermes was said to govern roads, doorways, and serve as a protector of travelers, among his many other roles. Ixtab, or the Rope Woman, was the Mayan goddess of suicidal deaths. Depicted as a deceased woman hanging from the sky with a rope around her neck, it was she who gathered the souls of those who died by suicide, those who were sacrificed, women who died during childbirth, warriors who died during battle, as well as priests, and escorted them to the afterlife. It should also be noted that in Yucatec society, depending on the circumstances, suicide was sometimes considered an honorable death. Another considered not your traditional psychopomp, from the native religion of Japan, Shinto's Izanami no Mikoto, was not only a goddess of creation, but considered the first woman. Creating the first land with her husband Izanami, the two gave birth to many other gods, before Izanami died birthing her son, Kagosuchi. After her husband broke his promise and failed to retrieve her from the underworld, she became the ruler of the land of the dead, gaining the power to directly and indirectly end a person's life, bringing them to her realm. The English translation of her name is She Who Invites. A bodhisattva of Buddhism, Jizo is one who was said to have dedicated his existence to saving the souls of those condemned to hell. His mercy is considered absolute, especially regarding his compassion and protection given to dead children. Often depicted as a monk with a shaved head, wielding a clerical staff capable of forcing open the gates of hell, he carries a sacred pearl that parts the darkness. Greeting the deceased at their time of death, Jizo serves as salvation to the oppressed and dying. In Breton folklore, Ankou is a psychopomp who serves as an assistant to death. The graveyard watcher, he both collects and protects the souls of those in his territory. Believed to be a shapeshifter capable of taking on numerous guises, Ankou is typically described as a tall, slender man wearing a long hooded cloak or a broad-brimmed hat, wielding a scythe. He is sometimes described as a skeleton, the common depiction of death, and is occasionally sometimes said to travel via carriage drawn by large black horses. Among the Cleric gods, gifted with the power of charismatic speech and eloquence, Ogmios had the ability to talk men into following him as far as the depths of the underworld. Souls conscribed to follow him had a chain attached to their tongue and threaded through their ear, which Ogmios used to further bind them to him. In voodoo, Papa Legba is the messenger, bridge, and gatekeeper between the world of man and the world of spirits. Devotees must first honor and pray to him to open the door before any magic or ritual work can be done. The door he opens leads to the world of not only magic, but allows one to contact the other Loas, other deities. He is the Loa who regulates the flow of ceremony, overseeing the crossroads to many paths. The intermediary between the mundane and spirit worlds, he also has great power over channels and acts of communication. Typically described as a seemingly weak, elderly man wearing beggar's clothing and a straw hat, he is deceitfully powerful. He is not, and I cannot stress this enough, anything like his pop culture portrayals such as in American Horror Story. That depiction is a disrespectful hodgepodge of other figures which only serves to further demonize indigenous and non-homogeneous spiritual practices. But I digress. Legba is often seen wielding a walking stick and accompanied by a dog companion. A great teacher known to provide guidance and wisdom, he has the power to remove any obstacle, open new doors and new pathways. In Haitian voodoo, The Barons and Gede are considered ancestral spirits of the dead. Among the Gede, Papa Gede is considered extremely important among the others, which number in the thousands. Some believe he is the first man who experienced death, and that it has fallen upon him to welcome others who follow across his path to the other side. He governs both death and sex, and it is he who the deceased must pass through to reach the afterlife. The keeper of the cemetery, he oversees the world's eroticism, helping people overcome their inhibitions, sometimes to their surprise. He is known for enjoying games, having a fondness for food and drink, healing the sick, communing with the dead, and being extremely protective of children. His duty as a psychopomp is to guide the souls of the dead to the realm of the ancestors. In Norse mythology, the battle maidens who served directly under the Allfather Odin were heralds of war. Fully armored with weapons and shield, these women were capable of flying atop their horses through the air or sea. Some were said to cause death to the unfavored, while others were believed to protect those they found worthy. However, their primary duty was to scour battlefields and choose among the dead those worthy to accompany them to Valhalla. The Baltic Velnias, or Veles, was the Slavic god of magic, alchemy, and the underworld. Before such practices were demonized by the Christian Church appearing in the region, he helped those gifted see beyond the veil. The king of departed souls, Veles was known to communicate with the dead, and was the patron of witches, sorcerers, and shamans, as well as shepherds and their livestock. He used music and song to bridge the worlds, guiding souls, enabling them to travel to different planes. According to the Vedas, as the first man who died, the Hindu god Yama established the path of mortality, down which all those living must follow. Yama governs the land of the dead, where he reigns guiding souls, originally as a cheerful king. Over time, he became the god who judges the deeds of the deceased, weighing their good deeds against their bad, eventually deciding their punishment or reward. Lastly, I want to briefly mention the role of the human psychopomp. Perhaps not as varied or as powerful as their divine counterparts, but still just as important. Shamans, or roles akin to that of the shaman, exist all over the world. They are known to not only provide healing to their community, but to be able to travel to other planes to gather information, as well as to guide the souls of the living and the dead. Traditionally speaking, guiding the souls of the deceased into the afterlife has been one of the primary duties of shamanic practitioners. From their perspective, life and death are both temporary periods, because our true nature, our soul, is eternal. The majority of shamanic work takes place in the transitory planes between life and death, the true realm of the soul. Here they are able to not only guide the soul, but heal it after death and before its next destination. They ease the dying, providing comfort, quelling fears of what's to come, as well as helping them come to terms with concerns about their life and relationships. Some practices even include being present when a child is born, to welcome the new life, guiding the new soul into its new body. I will use the broad term of guides for the collective practices and duties of mediums, hypnotists, and general intuitives have been known to facilitate between life and death transitions. Some have had near-death experiences, others simply channel actual spirit guides and work to orient and make things easier for those involved. These roles and their practices continue to exist in a number of forms across the globe, and as long as they make it easier for people to accept death, the unavoidable, easing the process for those who need it, I think they will continue to do so. Finishing up, I want to end this list with one more somewhat different and arguably controversial figure. There is a theory within pop culture that considers the beloved character Peter Pan to be a psychopomp. This belief holds that the children Peter takes with him flying through the air in the dead of night are actually deceased, and it is Peter's duty to guide their souls into the afterlife, i.e., Neverland. I will say that having heard the original story, as with most fairy tales and folk stories, the original tales of Peter Pan are much darker than the versions most know. So with that in mind, this theory is at least entertaining to think about. Our understanding of the afterlife varies a great deal among different cultures and religious dogma, yet there also seems to be many similarities. Most do not believe that life, or existence rather, ends when we die. So taking that into consideration, there must be something following death. Even scientifically speaking, it is said that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It simply changes from one form to another. But the truth is, there's only one way we will ever truly know. Still, it's nice to think there'll be someone guiding us through the process, someone to protect and escort us during our next stage. Psychopomps are interesting entities, greatly influential and arguably crucial. So tell me, an amusing thing to consider, which one would you prefer to be by your side when your time comes? I do not fear death. I had been dead for billions and billions of years. Before I was born, I had not suffered the slightest inconvenience from it. Mark Twain. Next episode, I hope to give you something a little different. Who knows, there may be a very special guest. For now, Assalamu alaikum and Namaste. Peace be with you until we meet again. Thanks for listening to me as I've nerded out about stories and beliefs. Join me next week as I journey down the rabbit hole once again by subscribing and listening wherever podcasts are available. Leave me a comment on iTunes. 5-star reviews are always great and help others find the podcast. Also, you can email me at faithandfearpodcast@gmail.com. And lastly, share with others you feel may enjoy or get something out of these conversations. Who knows? Maybe then we'll be one step closer to glimpsing the true nature of faith and fear. Music courtesy of pixabay.com.